What's the easiest way to study more in less time? I spent years trying to figure this out so that you don't have to. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly that by teaching you a game-changing concept I call the 3 cognitive pillars. And having coached thousands of students, I've noticed that once students master all 3 of these cognitive pillars, they're able to study much more at a much higher quality and in a shorter period of time, which means ultimately they get much better results. In order to master the 3 cognitive pillars, we first need to understand why it's almost impossible for most students, including probably you, to study more in less time, no matter how hard you try. And that reason is that most students do not understand how the brain learns. So here's the thing about learning. It's a complicated process, but if I break it down for you, learning starts with information coming into our brains. And the goal of studying is to turn this information into knowledge. And knowledge is, of course, what we use for exams or for solving a problem at work or anything else. So what does that actually mean to study more in less time? Well, it's not just about getting more information in, that's easy. The bottleneck is how hard it is to turn that information into knowledge. And the faster we can do that, the more effectively we can study and the shorter the amount of time it takes. But it's not as simple as that, because knowledge can be further broken down into 2 parts. The first is retention. Retention is how long we can hold on to our knowledge for. If we learn something today and we can still remember it weeks later, that's a sign of high retention. But there's a second, often overlooked aspect, which is arguably even more important, which is mastery. And mastery is the quality of that knowledge we're retaining. So for example, if you learn something, but then you can only just recall facts and recite things word for word, then your knowledge mastery is pretty low. It's quite superficial. Whereas if you're able to take information and connect it to other pieces of information, see how it relates, and then use them for complex problem solving, then that indicates a higher quality or higher mastery of knowledge. Now, this is important because remember, our dream outcome is not just to study more in less time. The reason we want to study more in less time in the first place is so that we can get better results. And so the only way that you can study more in less time in a way that actually leads to better results is to turn information into knowledge in a way that maximizes our retention and our mastery. After all, there's no point covering twice the amount of content if you forget half of it or you can't even use it in the way that you need to. And so the real question is, how do we turn information into knowledge in a way that actually ticks both of these boxes? And the most effective way to achieve this is something that researchers call knowledge schemas. The key to studying more in less time is being able to form knowledge schemas quickly and accurately. So what are schemas? A schema is basically a network of information. When you build a strong schema of knowledge, you're able to see how everything you learn is connected together. Think of schemas like the way that a city might organize its public transport system. You have this network of train stations and bus stations and all these different routes and paths that connect everything together. And ultimately, this transport network lets you get from one location to another location. In the case of learning, each location represents a piece of information or a concept.